Well, good morning, everyone. Hello. I hope you weren't expecting Coach Leanne because I am not her. I am Leslie. They had a little snafu in the emails and mixed up Leanne's and mine's for Leanne is tomorrow and I am today. So welcome to our Facebook Live. We have an important topic to talk about. So if you are here, you know the drill. So just let me know you're here in the chat. I would love to hear you. Hi, Pam. Good afternoon. I had some chats on my chat for some reason earlier than when we went live. So if more of you could just let us know that we are live, that would make me feel better that we really are live. Okay, Janice, thank you so much. Appreciate you. And Renee, thank you so much. So as I was saying, our machine who does all our emails got the two mixed up, and Leanne is going to be here tomorrow talking about a very important topic. But I am here for you today. So I am glad to be back. I have had a few days break after our workshop. I hope you enjoyed the workshop. I hope it was really helpful for you who got to attend. And if you didn't get to attend, I hope you watched the replay. Today, we're going to talk about a topic. How do I stop focusing on him? I'm stuck. I keep focusing on why won't he change, or let's get him to change, or let's find him help, or let's do something to fix him. And so we're going to talk about that. And let's just start with, why am I still stuck focusing on him? Why? Why is it important for me to try to get him to change? Let's start there. Why is it important for you to try to get your husband to change? Why do you think it is? Because you're not happy, right? That would be one reason. You're not happy. So why is it important for you to try to, because you keep trying to get him to change. If only he would understand, if only he would get it. I just need him to get it. I just need him to wake up to what's going on. I just need him to realize what a great man he could be if he would just get some help. Whatever it is, we've heard it all. So why is it important for you to try to get your husband to change? Why is it important for you to keep trying? Because you're stuck, you keep doing that. So obviously you think it's important. So why is it important? Let's put it out there. Let's face the giant. Why is it important? Okay, been married over 40 years. I've been married over 4 years. I had a long legacy with this man. I don't want to just throw that away. That's a legitimate reason, Penny. Renee says, he shows me he wants to make things better. Okay, or show me he wants to make things better. But why is it important to show you that he wants to make things better? I think I get what you're saying, Renee. Good. Okay, so why do we get stuck, though? Why do we get stuck in this hopium? Either he is changing or he's not changing, all right? And we get stuck in this hopium that maybe he will change, or we're going to help him change, or we're going to keep trying to get him to get it to change. For validation, okay, Chris, that's really a wise insight, because if he really agrees and changes, and he agrees that what he did was wrong or what you felt was right. And so I'm going to ask you, Crystal, write it down. How much do you need that validation in order for you to be okay? How much do you need that validation? We all like validation. I'm so happy you guys all showed up today. I would have felt very lonely if you said, oh, this is it, Leanne. I'm not staying, check out. We all like validation. So I'm not dismissing that. But how much do you need that validation for you to be okay? Is a really important question for you to answer in order to get unstuck, okay? All right, 20 years I invested, 3 children. He has a toxic family. I have a family that values the sanctity of marriage and looks down on divorce. It's ingrained in me. It's a battle. Yeah, and even if you don't have that legacy, my parents were divorced. I didn't want to be divorced. I'm not divorced. I'm grateful that I don't have a toxic marriage, but we've had our difficulties. The good thing is that we can work through it, and we accept what we can't change too. And it's acceptable, not that we like it. So I want you to, we're going to talk about, maybe there's some things that you just need to learn to accept that you're not going to always like. It's not your ideal marriage. It's maybe your husband isn't as romantic, or he isn't as neat, or he isn't as financially ambitious as you wish he were. These are not deal breaker sins in a marriage, right? They're uncomfortable, they're awkward, they're hard, they're disappointing for sure. They make life difficult if you're not on the same page on some of those things. But sometimes you have to accept, like we talked about in the workshop, the man you married, not the man and he has the same thing about you. How many of you put your best foot forward when you were dating? And there's other things about you that maybe are weaknesses or things that you like about yourself that he doesn't like about you. Like you talk too much, or you're too effervescent and he's more introvert, or whatever it is. These are not things that you're going to change about the other person, or should. And so we want to make a distinction, and I'm sure most of the people who come to this audience already know that distinction, but we want to make a distinction between two very important Christian disciplines that we need to learn. Sadly, for most Christian women, we've only been taught one of them, but there is another one that we also need to learn. But the first Christian discipline is forbearance. This is a big word that means basically accept people the way they are, because nobody's perfect. Be gracious, accept people. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's got their act together 100%, including me. We're not perfect, nor are we ever going to be. So we have to accept ourselves, first of all. That doesn't mean we don't work on changing. It just means we're never going to be perfect, because as soon as we fix one area of our life, we're going to see 5 others that aren't so good, right? So accept yourself, accept one another. And that's a hard discipline when we like it our way or we think they should change. So part of it is maybe our mindset is we have to accept that this person is the way they are, and maybe they don't even want to change. Maybe God isn't calling them to change. We just would find it easier if they would change. But that's not where our growth is going to come from. Our growth is going to come from accepting, learning forbearance, being patient, gracious with people who are not like us, right? So people who are like us, we get along with really well because we think we're the right way, right? Or at least those of us who are that way think that. But we learn a lot from people who are different from us. And that's why marriage can be such a challenge and such a blessing. However, the other discipline that we need to learn that most of you are here for is, how do you confront evil? How do you speak the truth in love? How do you have boundaries that say, no, I will not participate in the unfruitful deeds of darkness, right? That's a boundary. And I just was reading in the Bible this week, and I thought I would share it with you. Let me grab my glasses. I didn't plan on sharing it, but I think it'd be really helpful for you to see some boundaries in the Bible. That I love this in Psalm. It's really clear what David's boundaries are about what he will do and what he won't do. So it's in Psalm 101, and let me just read it to you. I will sing of your love and justice, Lord. I will praise you with songs. I will be careful to live a blameless life. This is what I will do. This is what I won't do. Listen, I will lead a life of integrity in my own home. I will refuse to look at anything vile and vulgar. Wouldn't you love your husband to commit to that as a boundary for himself? These are self-boundaries. This is what I will do. This is what I won't do. This is Psalm 101. I will refuse to look at anything vile and vulgar. I hate all who deal crookedly. I will have nothing to do with them. I will reject perverse ideas and stay away from every evil. I will not tolerate people who slander their neighbors. I will not endure conceit and pride. I will search for faithful people to be my companions. Only those who are above reproach will be allowed to serve me. I will not allow deceivers to serve in my house. Liars will not stay in my presence. My daily task will be to ferret out the wicked. All right, so I'm just saying, the Bible talks about boundaries. This is what David will do and David won't do. So for so often, Christian women have not been given the right to have that I will not. It's always I have to submit. And I think submission, like I've said before, is a good discipline for every Christian and every person to practice, because you do not need to get your way all the time. However, it's also important for you to clear out what your wills are and what your will nots are. And what are your deal breakers? And when your husband is doing those deal breakers, whatever they are, I would say lying on a regular basis, cheating, whether it's cheating with porn, cheating with women, cheating with men, cheating in other ways, lying, cheating, he's actively addicted, and that's impacting your family in other areas, whether it's alcohol or gambling or other kinds of things. All right. Or abuse, any kind. For me, those are pretty big deal breakers in a relationship. Not that they're not forgivable. They are forgivable, but they're not livable. You don't live with someone who does that in a peaceable way. It's impossible. So if that's what your husband is doing and you are pleading with him to understand the impact that this has on you and the kids and the family, and he doesn't seem to care or want to change, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's not possible. You can live with someone, but you can't live safely, and you can't live peaceably, emotionally, physically, financially. So your body's going to be a wreck. Your spirit's going to be a wreck. Your kids are going to be a wreck with someone who's actively doing those things to you or to them. It's just not possible. God didn't wire us that way. He wired us to live in peace, in love. And when we are oppressed, which some people are, he doesn't say we thrive in that environment. And he certainly didn't design marriage to be an oppressive, toxic relationship. Now, because we're humans, that can happen. And we've talked about this in the workshop. And so we talk to each other. We say, hey, that was really painful. Or I don't want to live with someone who I can't trust. And when you don't tell me the truth, I lose my trust in you. All right. So you're speaking up. You're not just forbearing. So those are the two disciplines that we need to learn in our Christian life. So what happens when we get stuck in trying to change him and focusing on him? If only he would change, I wouldn't have to put my foot down. If only he would change, I wouldn't have to learn boundaries. If only he would change, I wouldn't have to speak up for myself and say, no, I'm not putting up with this. So maybe instead of focusing on what you want him to do so you don't have to grow in your own way, maybe you could switch gears and grow in your own way. If only he would change and our marriage would make it, I wouldn't have to get a job. I could stay homeschooling my kids. Great. But he's not willing to not change. He's not willing to change. Right? And so this is where you need to say, what's my problem with his problem? Well, if he's not going to change his addiction and he's spending money crazy and we have no money to eat and pay our rent and our mortgage, I'm going to have to get a job and I may have to separate because he's dangerous and I may have to separate our finances and I need to build up my courage to be able to do that. Right? So that's something you can work on. You can't work on changing him. I'm not faulting you for trying. I've tried plenty to change my husband, and some things he's changed and some things he hasn't. And same with me. So that's part of what we do with one another when we live with one another. We try to change them somewhat. And we should. We should influence one another and impact one another when we live with each other. But when you run against a brick wall over and over again, and someone is clearly telling you, stop it, I'm not changing, or just completely resisting and refusing to listen to you, then what? You accept it. You accept, not like it, just like when someone dies in a car crash. You don't like it, but you have to come to terms with it, accepting reality. You accept it, and then you decide whether you can live with it. You accept it. Okay, he does not want to change this. He is not willing to change this. What if your husband was, had other issues? Maybe he had some health issues, or maybe he was not willing to exercise, or not willing to watch his diet, or not willing to do other things. Can you accept that you're not in charge of what he puts in his mouth as an adult? Or whether or not he exercises, even if you don't like it? Can you be at peace with it? Or are you going to continue to focus on him changing? Or what do you need to learn to accept it and be at peace with it? Or accept it and recognize I cannot be at peace with this because it's toxic, it's dangerous, it's harmful to me. Just like living in a house that isn't your ideal house. You make peace with that and fix it up the best you can. And there's some things you cannot change. You can't add extra rooms if you don't have money, or you can't add extra space if you don't have the land to do so. And so you accept what I have and you change yourself. I have to accept it and be happy here. I'm going to be miserable. You decide. And if I can't accept some things, and some things shouldn't be accepted in terms of tolerated it, you might have to accept that it's reality. Like if I have breast cancer, I have to accept that before I get treatment. But I'm not just going to accept it and say, I guess I have breast cancer. There's nothing I can do. I guess I have breast cancer. There's something I should do. Am I going to do it? Right? For my welfare. What if my husband doesn't want me to? What if he says it's too expensive? What if he doesn't agree with my doctor's treatment protocol and he wants me to do something different? What do I do with that? Do I get to decide? So there's lots of different roads that we can take here. But my point is, with destructive husbands who do not want to change, you are wasting your time and energy. If you've tried to get them to change, you've tried to get them to understand, I'm all for trying. But when you are coming up against a hard no and a brick wall, then it's time for you to do something different. Accept, clarify that they don't want to change, or they don't want to change the way you want them to change. Clarify that, accept it. And now, what do you do? What do you do about your problem? I'm living with a liar. I'm living with a chronic adulterer. I'm living with a man who abuses me and the kids. I'm living with a man I can't trust, who doesn't want to rebuild trust. I feel scared. I feel sick. I feel anxious. I feel unhappy. I feel angry. What do I want to do about my problems of that? Angry, anxious, unhappy. That's a boatload to work on, isn't it? And so what do you want to do? How do you begin to work on your problem? I'm scared. Okay, maybe I need to go back to college. Get prepared to be on my own. If he's not willing to change, that may be something I need to do. Maybe I need to start saving money and do some part-time babysitting or house cleaning or whatever I need to do to get some cash to hire a lawyer. These are things that you can do when you absolutely have no influence on him. All right, I'm going to read the feed a little bit and have conversations. I'm just sitting here talking all by myself. We should have been taught boundaries as little girls. The church didn't step in. Thankfully, we learned and we can do better now. Yeah. Just went through a hard season of invalidation. It's very hard when we're invalidated, isn't it? Envy, someone feels victimized, but projects it onto me. Still hard to tease out. Deal breaker, can't live with it. Yeah, I think it's so easy, think of it with our children as moms. We can see our adult children making some mistakes or, doing things that we wouldn't choose for them, but it's not our life. It's not our life to live. It's not our decisions to make. It's theirs. It's not our mistakes to make. And it's not that we can't say some warning bells or some concerns, but sooner or later, their decisions are their decisions, aren't they? And you either accept them and still maintain a relationship, or accept them and maybe you can't maintain a relationship because of the decisions that they've made, right? And those are hard decisions and hard places to be at in a family or in a marriage, for sure, especially when you have a long marriage. 40 years is a long time. But you can do some healing on your own and do the work that you need to do. And for those of you who were at the workshop, we've opened to Conquer. We have a support and educational group for women who want to do their own work. So Conquer isn't about changing your husband. Now, you will learn how to keep your side of the street clean. What I mean by that is you'll learn to stop being so reactive, because when he does something icky, he lies to you, he watches porn, you find out something horrible, that he's taken money out of the bank account, whatever. And I'm not saying you can't be angry about that. Of course you're going to be angry about that. But when you react in a retaliatory, sinful way, now the two of you are part of the problem, not just him. Right? So same with your kids. Let's picture this. And I'll just tell a personal story with my son. I remember reacting one time to something he said. He said something really smart or snarky or whatever. And I reacted in a, snarky, smart way back, which I'm just human, just saying. And he said this to me. He said, "So you're supposed to be the adult Christian counselor here, huh, Mom?" It sort of put me in my place. Yes, I am supposed to be the adult who knows better, who's wiser, who's more mature. That's what I was supposed to be, but I wasn't acting like it, right? And it really woke me up to the influence and impact I could have on that moment if I didn't react in that way. Because what happens when you don't react, and I talk a lot about this in my book, How to Act Right When Your Spouse Acts Wrong. When you don't react in a sinful, snarky, retaliatory way when someone sins against you, which is what Jesus tells us not to do. And Paul, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. When you learn to not do that, that is about the only chance you have. That doesn't mean endure the sin or put up with it. It means you don't react in a retaliatory, sinful way yourself to it. Doesn't mean you don't have boundaries, you don't speak up and say the truth. It means you do it in a godly way. Because that when you react poorly, then they look at you as the wrong one. Look what you've said to me. How dare you try to change me when you're a mess yourself? And that may be somewhat true, right? And so as you do your side of the street and you do your work, you have much more opportunity, not to be a show-off, but to be an influencer and an impact on, hey, I'm not dancing that destructive dance anymore. I'm not falling for that bait anymore. I'm not doing the crazy dance that we do all together as a couple anymore. You can try, but I'm not dancing. When you learn how to do that, guess what? Now you have power, you have choice, you have voice. And it begins to cause him to press pause. I just may lose this woman if I don't get my act together, or he will continue to oppress you in more scary ways, which makes it real clear for you that you can't stay, right? Which is then requiring you to do some work. What do I need to leave? If I am going to leave this marriage, do I need to get a job? Do I have resources? Do I have a career I can fall back on? Do I have people who can help me? Do I have a support system? These are things you should get in place now if you're in that uncertain place, because you will need them. And so make sure you are starting to do what you might need to do. Just like people who are thinking our world is ending, they're kind of hunkering down and getting some food supplies, water supplies, because what if it happens? I want to be prepared. And that's not a bad idea, depending on how certain you think something bad might happen. Get yourself prepared. What are you going to do? Not just keep trying to change him. That's waste of energy anymore. So you may want to consider joining our Conquer support group, which helps you do that. Let me just read some of the questions here. This is what I needed to learn, Jennifer said. To react, not take that poison. Never knew what was happening. Yeah. That poison that when someone speaks evil to you or hurts you, it's like shooting evil darts into your bloodstream. And you can feel it. You can feel it. When someone is rude to me or someone is critical of me in an unkind way, I can just feel those evil, and I'm not even saying they're intending to shoot evil darts. I just feel them inside of me. I can just feel them. And I just want to give some back of my own. And that's where Paul says, and Jesus warns us, don't go there. That's not only going to hurt more the situation and you if you do that. It's hard not to. And that's why David had declared, I will do this. I won't do this. In another place in Psalm 39, here's another boundary. He said, I will put a muzzle over my mouth while the evil are in my presence, because it's so tempting to just let them have it in coarse, ugly ways. I'm not saying we're not to speak the truth in love, but that takes a little bit more self-discipline and self-control, doesn't it? So if you need some help in doing your work, that's what we're talking about in Conquer. You can tell us a story about what's going on. We want to know that. But if you're just looking for advice on how to get him to change, I mean, I'm sure you've done it all. The Conquer is a resort for women who've done it all, who've been to counseling, 5 counselors, 10 counselors, 25 counselors, 3 intensives, prayed, fasted, done it all. And I'm not saying don't do those things. But if you keep coming up a brick wall and he won't change and you feel stuck, you've got to change directions, girlfriend, and work on you. Poppy, you say my spouse continually manipulates me, but acts completely different in public. Today I lost it and retaliated in front of colleagues. Now I am the bad guy to everyone. Yep, exactly. That's what happens. And actually, I don't put it past certain people to make that happen or try to make that happen so that you do look like the bad guy and the crazy guy. And now you're looking like that in front of other people. And friends, I'm just going to tell you, I've been in this work for close to 50 years. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. The more you do that, 2 things are going to happen. Internally, you're going to feel bad about what you did, just like Poppy is. You're going to feel bad. You're going to start to feel like, I think I am just as bad as him. I'm the crazy one. I'm the guilty one. I'm the bad one. And so you lose your power to be the impactor influencer. You start to feel shame and self-hatred and self-loathing. And that's not a good place to be. And he will heap it on you. And the second thing that happens is the people around you who see you doing that start to think you are the crazy one, that you're the instigator, that he's right. You would be a handful to live with. He's right. I don't know how he can live with you and how he can put up with you. And he's going to start poisoning your children in the same way, so that if you ever do stand up for yourself and try to go to court and try to get custody, guess what he's going to do? He's going to parade all these witnesses in front of the judge and say, yeah, I heard her when she just went off and called him in front of the kids. She acted like this in public. I think she needs to be in the hospital. She is borderline. She is bipolar, whatever. Girlfriend, please. I've seen it. We've seen it happen in Women in Conquer before they did their own work. And they have gotten arrested when they hauled off and slapped their husband. And he calls 911 and says, I'm being abused. And the police come and get you and arrest you because you weren't doing your work and he provoked you to the place that you lost it. And you didn't know where that place was. We've talked about this example, so I'm just going to use it again. Most of you probably already heard it. But we all know the place of our capacity with holding our urine, don't we? We know the place. And it changes as we get older, right? Our little bladder gets weaker or smaller, whatever. We don't have as much capacity. But we all have a capacity of when I can't hold it anymore. We know what that capacity is. And we don't let ourselves go beyond that capacity. Why? Because we would humiliate ourselves. If you were just shopping in the mall and you said, oh, I don't have time to go to the bathroom right now, I just want to keep shopping, and you went beyond your capacity, pretty soon you're going to embarrass yourself in public. And you don't want to do that. So you put your clothes away and you go to the bathroom. All right? Because you know your capacity. Do you know your capacity for your anger before it's going to come flying out of your mouth? Do you know your capacity for how much you can tolerate of disrespect, all of that before you're going to blow? And if you don't, that's your work to do. Just like a little child learns how to tell their bladder's full through a few accidents that they didn't notice, right? So the accidents can be useful information, but don't let them keep happening. We all have capacity. And all you have to do is say one little phrase when your husband's provoking you to your capacity. And that is, I've got to go to the bathroom. He's not going to stop you from doing that because he doesn't want you to pee all over yourself or do something else. And you don't have to explain why. I'm at capacity. I need a break. Go to the bathroom, lock the door, and calm yourself down because you don't want to do what Poppy just said happened to her. Jennifer says, I've done it all and now I didn't understand what was happening. Yes, it hurts. I'm tired of being in shame, tired of it being twisted. Yeah. And so if you're in this situation and you want to start doing your own work, you want to start getting healthier, you want to start learning how to get healthier, you want to start learning what God's word says about healthy relationships. And even more importantly, because you can't have healthy relationships of any kind, even with your own kids, without a healthy self-concept. Remember, Paul says in Romans 12:3, do not think more highly of yourself than you ought. But in the same way, he is also saying, don't think more lowly of yourself than you ought. And so how do we think of self? What is our relationship with ourself? Are we just as destructive toward ourselves as our husband is? Are we just as verbally assaultive in our inner dialogue as we are to ourselves than he is? Do we lack trust in ourselves because we don't do what we say we're going to do to ourselves? Like, I am going to join Conquer, or I am going to lose weight, or I am going to go to the gym, or I am going to take better care of myself, or I am going to learn how to do this. And then we never put in the energy or effort. Well, then we're losing trust in ourselves in the same way we would lose trust in someone else who did that. Girlfriend, you need to learn how to have a healthy sense of self, even before you can have a good relationship with others. And so Conquer can be just the place to get you started with the support, the community, and the resources of information that you might need to know. So we're going to close on Friday. We're going to have we only open twice a year because we invite all of our new members and then we love on you and get you going. And we want to put all our energy into that place. So we close on Friday. We're going to have a big party right here. It's a Facebook Live on Friday, 3 hours. We're going to be here from noon to 3 Eastern time. We're going to have Lisa Turkhurst with us at the beginning. So she's going to come and talk about her story a little bit, not too much because of just her own privacy issues, but how she learned to set boundaries because of her situation, how she learned to do what Psalm David had to learn to do. This is what I will do. This is what I won't do. This is how much I'm going to do, and this is how much I'm not going to do. And then we're going to have other Conquer sisters come in and share their experience and how they've grown through Conquer. So please show up. Even if you joined Conquer, show up, join the party. We're going to be together for 3 hours on Friday. I'd like to answer some questions. So let me just look in the chat and see if there's any questions. And if you do want to ask anonymously, go to leslievernick.com/question/. And let's see if there's any questions in here yet. Here's a couple. My husband says he's willing and wanting to change, but I'm not seeing any evidence of change after 5 years of therapy and recently 3 months of more intensive therapy. Thoughts? I have a lot of thoughts. So I'm preparing a workshop for the American Association of Christian Counselors in September for counselors on this very topic. So counselors who are seeing couples who trust has been broken, what do they do? And so I'm encouraging them, first step, and I wish I had my notes here to go with, but first step is to kind of take an assessment. And the assessment would be go something like this. If your marriage was all better, and so this might be a good question you want to ask your husband. If our marriage was all better and we were getting along really, really well, and we had the best relationship from your perspective, what would that look like? What would that sound like? What would that feel like? And try and answer that for yourself. Be as detailed as you can. Because my experience is that if you really ask an abuser or whatever your husband's guilty of, whatever he hasn't changed, that question, their answer will be very skim milk, and it'll really be how it's good for them. It's not good for us, right? So then the next question after getting that answer will be, well, that might be good for you, but since we're a couple, does it matter to you if it's good for me? Because those aren't the things that I need in order to make it good for me. And does he show any care for what you need? Because oftentimes in marriage counseling, what happens is the goals aren't set out. Like, where are we going? So I always set up the goals, like, where are we going? If I'm going to do marriage counseling with you, I'm going to do a marriage intensive with you, I want to know where we're going. So what does it look like if we're going to build this marriage to be a really strong, stable, trusting marriage? What would that look like at the end? And it might look very different to him than it looks like to her. Usually they say things like, I just wanted to go back to the way it was. Well, you don't want it to go back to the way it was because the way it was wasn't any good either, right? Or I just want her to respect me. I just want her to get off my back. I want her to stop. I want her to forgive me. That would be enough. But that's not enough for you. And that's where the mismatch happens in counseling, because you're not going in the same directions and there's no clear goals of where you're going. And so I might sit down with your husband. I might say, hey, we've been to lots of counseling and we've been to a couple of intensives. And I want you to honestly answer me. Do you see our marriage any better than it's ever been? Or is our marriage any better? Or what would you want it to do? Nothing's different. So where do you want to go from here? Because I think it's a waste of our money and time to do that again. But our marriage still isn't any better. You say you want to change, but you're still doing porn. You're still doing whatever he's doing. I would list it. The serious things that he's doing that apparently were addressed in marriage counseling, which weren't addressed. And that's why marriage counseling, if I could draw a picture, this is the picture. Please don't waste your money on marriage counseling until then spend lots of money on marriage counseling. So I believe in marriage counseling. Okay. I'm not downing marriage counseling, but okay. So here's your marriage. Okay. And you have the foundation, which is trust and safety. Okay. That's your foundation. Okay. And you have love, you have children, you have faith, and faith usually goes here. But because we have so many people in our audience where faith means I believe certain things, let me just say something about that. Even the devil believes certain things. That doesn't make you a Christian, right? You can know theology. The devil knows more correct theology than you or I would ever know. It doesn't make him a Christian, right? So I would say faith. So let's just put trust and safety, SAFETY, here. Okay, obviously, we would hope that would be built on a foundation of faith. But I have some friends who have some decent marriages with husbands who don't profess faith, who still have trust and safety. And I have tons of women I know who husbands do profess faith and do not have trust and safety. Okay, so here's your house. Okay, now, in order to maintain any kind of house, all right, you need maintenance and repairs. All right, so my house needs some maintenance right now. My cleaning lady is coming on Friday. I can't wait. We've got dust. We've got, dirty windows. We've got other things. It needs to be cleaned up, right? I've been really busy. I haven't done much. My sheets need to be washed, all kinds of things. It just needs some maintenance, right? It's just a little tired looking right now, right? So Once we do that, my house will look much better. But my house also needs some repairs. Like I think I've shared with you, I crashed into the garage and our garage frame is broken and the door is starting to peel. So that needs to be painted. We were moving furniture the other day and we crashed into the wall and a part of the wall chunked out and that needs to be repaired. So the house is looking like it has some maintenance issues and it has some repair issues, right? Now I can make my bed and that's going to make my bedroom look better for me, but it's not going to fix my garage door, right? So this is what's happening in marriage counseling. Oftentimes in marriage counseling, you're working on maintenance. Let's have a date night. Let's have nice communication, bring flowers. Let's do loving things. Let's have more sex. All those things are important in a relationship, and as it is to keep up a house. If you don't do those things, like I said, your house starts looking pretty tired and pretty neglected. But if this foundation has a big crack, you can do all the maintenance you want, but it doesn't fix this crack because this requires repair work. Okay. Now, this repair work can't be done until the person who broke this admits it, confesses it, and repents of it so that they don't keep doing this, right? Repentance is I changed. So that requires some personal work. So before you do the marriage work, it requires some personal work of the person who broke safety and trust to begin with. So when he does his work so that his heart is in the right place, then you can work to rebuild this because he's willing to be honest. He's willing to be open. He's willing to hear your pain and the impact it's caused. We talked a lot about this in the webinar, the workshop. But if you start doing marriage counseling and they start saying, well, let's try to build trust, and he hasn't worked on anything that you can't trust what's going on here, how can you rebuild trust and safety when he hasn't done his work? Or he's still blaming you, or he's still not admitting it, or he doesn't want to talk about it, or whatever it is. You can't. You can't. And that's why this question, willing to change, but after 5 years of therapy and 3 intensives, that seems to me like you're working on the wrong stuff. Yeah, I could have a cleaning lady here every year for 5 years. Every week I could have her here, but it's not going to fix my garage door and it's not going to fix the chunk out of my wall, right? Because that's not what cleaning ladies do. And marriage counselors can do repairs if, like, it's like having someone come in, the marriage counselors having someone come in and fix the damage that's been done. But if I'm still doing the damage, if I'm crashing into my garage wall every week, I better get some more driving lessons, right? Because you repair the damage and I do it again, and you repair damage and I do it again. Pretty soon the structure itself is just trashed. And so if I don't fix the person who's driving into the wall, if I don't fix the termites that are causing the foundation damage, fixing the foundation is a waste of time. Does that make sense? I hope it does. All right. Diane says, my husband neglects me often. One example is yesterday I had a medical procedure. I was gone all day. My son takes me, talks to the doctor. When I got home, my husband was unusually attentive. He rarely is. It felt so nice. I was sick. I could not stand up. Let me see. Wait a minute. I was sick. I could not stand to get my dinner. He talked to me like he cared, and then he said he had to go out for a bit. He did not come home until 10:30. He ended up hanging out with his brothers and had dinner with them. I had no dinner. He has done this many times before. Wow. I'm so sorry, Diane. That is truly uncaring. And I guess I'm wondering how you handle that. So if it were me, I would have a conversation with your husband about that. And I would start with saying, I need to talk to you about something that I'm really unhappy about. And I don't understand you. How would you feel if you were so sick that you couldn't stand up? And I promised to make you dinner and I went out and never came home and had dinner with my family and just didn't care about you all night long. How would that feel? So I would reverse it to see if he could put himself in those shoes and have any empathy. But yeah, this is a regular occurrence. What he's saying is you don't matter. You don't matter enough to me to put my time, my energy, and my care in caring for you, which is part of the marriage vows. So again, I would speak about that. And so I'm not saying, guys, never speak about it. So I would speak about it and say, that's not okay with me. You promised to care about me when we got married, and you're not. So what does that mean for our marriage? Where do we go from here? Because I'm not willing to live into old age with a man who shows such blatant uncaring toward his wife that he said he would care for. You wouldn't want me to just leave you if you were hurting and sick. How do you, in your own mind, justify leaving me? I would be, you don't have to be ugly, but you can be firm and clear. I don't dance around it. Be clear. And if he feels bad, good. He's supposed to feel bad. When we're sinning and someone calls us out on it and we feel shame and guilt, that's not a bad thing. Just like if I peed my pants in public, I would feel shame and bad, right? That's part of human recognizing that you did something icky, right? And it helps you self-correct. So I'm not saying call them names or, all of that. I'm saying speak the truth in love of how this affected you and how you felt. And that's a risk because you might get the answer. I don't give a rip about how you care, feel, or so what? Now, he might not say those words, but by his response to you being that vulnerable, not crying, sobbing, please care about me, but hey, that's not okay that you didn't care about me. If we're married, I'm assuming you're going to care about me for better or for worse, in sickness and in health. I was sick last night and you went off and fed your own face and didn't care about whether I had anything. That's not okay. And see what he says. And if there's no acknowledgement, no confession, and no repentance, do you want to live with more of the same into your old age? Where he would expect you to care for him, but you're not entitled to the same thing? Think about that. Marriage is not a one-sided relationship. Katie would say, my husband says he would be fine with me leaving him when he's sick because he takes care of himself. And I think there's some truth to that. Some people do not like to be hovered over when they're sick. And I'm one of them. So I totally get that. If I'm sick, please do not bother me. But I want someone home if I needed them. So if I needed them, I could call them or, whatever, depending on how sick I was. But I don't want anybody hanging around me like that. So I think there's some give and take and understanding who that person is. But my husband's the opposite. So I don't treat him as that. I treat him as he would want to be treated when he's sick. And he does the same for me. He leaves me alone when I'm sick because that's not what he would want, but that's sort of what I want. I just want to be by myself while I'm healing, unless I would need something that I can't do for myself. So everybody's different, but part of being married is caring for the person that they are, right? And if you need them, then that's what they promise to do, right? So when we talk about, again, if you read your Bible, which I would encourage you to do, if you read your Bible, you will see God in the Old Testament. Read the book of Jeremiah. It's pretty shocking. If you read the book of Jeremiah, it's pretty shocking how often God uses the word adultery to mean unfaithfulness. You have been unfaithful to your covenant vows. And not caring is an unfaithfulness to the covenant vows of, I promise to care for you in sickness and in health. That's the promise. And I believe most marriages contain both people making those promises. So I would ask him about that and just be very direct. You don't have to be ugly about it, but be very direct and see what happens. See what happens. If he feels a pang of guilt, good, he should. And hopefully that would motivate him to not do that again. When I asked my husband why he didn't ask if I was safe in the recent blizzards and ice storms, his response was, I didn't know if you were out in it or not. Yeah. So if you didn't know, why wouldn't you inquire if you thought I might be out, or just to check that I wasn't out, right? So I think there are people in this world, I don't understand it because it's not me, but I have met them who don't think beyond the end of their nose, really. They just don't. They don't think about things. And maybe your husband's one of them. All right, let me see what else is here. Is lack of intimacy for almost a decade a good enough reason to leave marriage? I did not sign up for a life of celibacy. I've been clear about communicating my needs over the years, but of course, things don't change. So is there a reason he gives you? So my guess is he's impotent and he feels embarrassed about that and he can't perform. And so it's easier for him just to shut down, especially as men get older, and not talk about it than to go to the doctor and get some help and admit that. So I'm not sure why and what. So I would need to know the pattern. So did you have a good sex life and now you don't because of this? Or was there fights that are happening between you? Or is he having an affair? Is he homosexual? There's lots of, things that are going on in my mind that I've seen over the years for reasons for this. Low testosterone, all of that above. So I wouldn't jump to the divorce answer is if he's been a decent husband in other ways. But I would say to him, I feel really neglected and hurt that whatever's going on with you, you are not addressing it so that we can come together in an intimate way. That you're not talking about it, you're not going to the doctor, you're not going to a counselor, you're not addressing it in any way. And that's not okay with me because it's impacting me and it's impacting whether I want to stay in this marriage. And see what he says. How common is it in a divorce with a covert narcissist for the primary parent to get full ability to make medical decisions for the kids? Not very likely. Not very likely, especially with a covert narcissist. So covert narcissist is the kind of person who looks good. And so if a judge thinks someone looks good and like a decent parent, and there's no obvious red flags to make him suspected as an incompetent parent to make medical decisions for a child, then it's not likely that you would get primary medical consent for a child. But that's really a legal question that you need to ask your lawyer because every state is a little different and every judge is different. So I would definitely check with your lawyer, but not likely, not likely. This will be my third divorce. I was married for 7 years to my high school sweetheart, 30 years to my second husband, and this marriage will be 5 years after the May court hearing. Do you have any wisdom for the possibility of a remarriage after divorce and a marriage of someone else and then back together? I am not sure that's the way that God will lead, but it may be possible. I know you talk a lot about helping folks either keep their marriage or get out by working on self. But do you have any wisdom in this aspect of getting together with a prior husband when the marriage is pretty healthy? I don't think that should be your first concern right now, hon. I think that your first concern would be to get yourself healthy because you've had 3 failed marriages. I don't know the reasons, but there is some part of you in all of that I think is really important for you to work on. And the answer to our problems isn't finding another man to take care of us. You've heard me say that before. In order for you to be a fully functioning adult, you have to be capable of taking care of yourself. And I'm reading in this that you feel anxious about this failed marriage. So you want to find another, someone to take care of you. And I might be wrong, but that's what I'm sort of reading into that. And I think it's really important for you to take this third failed marriage as a wake-up call for you. It could be a wake-up call for them too, but it could be a wake-up call for you. I remember, and I've shared this story before, but not for a long time. I was at a conference in Dallas and I was at a business meeting and everybody was at the bar and I was waiting for my Coke at the bar. And there was this man who was sitting there and he wasn't at the business meeting. And he said, "Oh, what are you here for?" And I told him I'm here for my work. And he says, "What do you do?" And I told him and he said, "Oh," he goes, "I've been married 3 times. He goes, "I just haven't found the right person." And I said, maybe it's not about finding the right person. Maybe it's about being the right person. And, so he was always thinking, my marriage has failed because she wasn't the right person. She wasn't what I needed. But he wasn't really looking at his own self as why did 3 marriages fail? And I'm not saying it might be because your picker's broken that you picked, or you got excited about a new love interest and didn't have good boundaries on yourself in terms of temptations. I don't know what went wrong and what went on, but I think it would be to your best interest right now to not go back to another marriage or find a different guy, but for you to just say, I need to get healthy myself so that if I have the opportunity to have a future relationship, I find someone who's also healthy and we have a healthy relationship. All right. That would be my best answer to you for right now. I'm a new Conquer member, married 27 years, discovered 10 years ago that my husband is a covert narcissist. We are pastoring a church whose members are becoming less and less. I don't feel like going to our church anymore, which will make him more angry. How do I respond, especially to the congregation? Yeah, so it's hard. And I would start, and I don't know, so I'm just guessing here. I don't know your history with this man. So covert narcissist means this. So, and this is, I assume, your diagnosis. And so be careful because we're not always right. And just because we read, like I had some medical issues and I'm on the internet and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, none of that was true. So just be careful that we're not diagnosing somebody based on internet information and we're not a clinician or he hasn't been clinically diagnosed. That may not be what he has. He just might be a wolf in sheep's clothing. That would be the biblical definition of more of a covert narcissist, right? That they're still a wolf, but they cover themselves with sheep's clothing to make them look better. So I don't know what your signs are that let you assume that he's a covert narcissist, but the issue is that you're living with someone you don't trust. You're living with someone who you feel has harmed you, who looks like a harmless person on the outside, but really is a ravenous wolf on the inside, which is what narcissists do who are covert. They're still aggressive, but they're just more sneaky about it. So my first step would be to say to him, how are you feeling about all the people that are leaving the church? And as a pastor, what do you see as the problem here in our congregation? And might it be the same problem that we're having in our marriage? Like you don't listen to anybody but yourself. You think you're always right. And I wouldn't say those things, but it might be some of those things. Second thing I might say is, our marriage is failing. You're not willing to listen. You're not willing to hear me. I don't feel I can sit under your leadership as a pastor any longer. And I'm going to be going to a different church or I'm going to be doing something else. And this is where you're going to have to decide how I'm going to explain that to church members or whether you're going to leave him to explain it because he's going to explain it. So you have to decide whether you're just going to let your reputation go to the dirt or whether you're going to try to defend yourself, which then is going to create other issues for him and for you. And this third thing is, I don't know what kind of congregation it is, but if you have any kind of board, which I don't hold a lot of hope in them helping you at all, but it might be a place to talk to them and say, the things that are happening in the church are happening at home as well, and I am not able to participate in that. You're not detailed in whatever's happening in the church. So if there's something really rotten in Denmark, like I wish, so this pastor, James McDonald, who just got arrested in California for beating up a woman. He was a very prominent pastor in the Chicago area and very well liked, but he was also a bully pastor. He wasn't a covert narcissist. He's an overt narcissist. He's just a bully pastor. But nobody would stand up to him in his congregation, nobody on the board. He was very controlling and he was also very smart. He was a very gifted teacher and taught the Bible all over the place. But he's also a problem person. And sadly, his own board, he finally got fired and disqualified as a pastor. And then hopped over to a church in Phoenix. And, they're all supporting him saying, oh, everybody's gossiping about you, telling lies, don't believe it. And now he beats up a lady in California. So I think churches are being more aware, like Rabbi Zacharias, there is people who, fool us. And we think they're better than they are, spiritually or otherwise. So I don't know if you have a board that you can go to and just say, my husband needs help. And whether or not you can help him get help, but I can't. My voice is, vacant in his head, and I can't continue to support the church or his ministry anymore. And if you can encourage him to get some help, I'd encourage you to do that. Maybe that's all you say, but at least it gives him a heads up. All right. Are there resources on a therapeutic separation? He wants to do more counseling before we attend marriage intensive, but I'm scared of going back on boundaries because I don't know how to trust him. Yeah, you have to have really strong boundaries with someone you can't trust. So don't go back on boundaries. And so, yes, the book in the Conquer Library, I assume you're talking about, do I have information about that? So we have the book, Before You Say I Don't. And inside of that book is guidelines for separation, both a quick separation, like if you have to leave, you have to flee, like what does that look like? Should you tell him that I'm leaving tomorrow? No, but there's all kinds of information about that. Or what is a planned separation? What's a therapeutic separation? Which is a therapeutic separation is where he agrees to the separation. Sometimes they don't agree, you just separate. But if he agrees to the separation for the purposes of reconciliation and healing, then he agrees to be under authority and accountability for his behaviors. That's a whole different set of guidelines. Not everybody can structure a therapeutic separation with either a therapist or a pastor or both on the team of that for accountability for the changes that you guys want to make as a couple to rebuild safety and trust. But that's certainly the best option if you can secure that agreement. But oftentimes with a destructive person, you just basically inform them that you're separating. They're not agreeing to it and they're not liking it. And sometimes you're just running out the door as fast as you can. But if you're separating, not in a therapeutic way, in the book, there's also what you need to get in order paperwork wise if you're going to do that, and how to vet attorneys and all those kind of things. So it's in that book. We also have some videos on that with children and all that. And then also, like if you're separating, what legal requirements in terms of not taking the kids out of state without the husband's permission, all that kind of stuff is in that book. And I think there are some videos on that. There was one other thing I was going to say about what's in the library about that. In the book, I think it's in the book or somewhere else, there's lots and lots of verses about, in the Bible about, doesn't talk about marriage separation, but it does talk about separating yourself from wicked company. Like, do not associate with an angry person lest you become like them. Or, the impact of fools and deceit on your body. And, so that if you had to use the verses to share with your church and your congregation about why you can't live peaceably with this person anymore, you would have some biblical support. Okay. All right. Amanda, I don't know if you see any more questions. Let me just go through the chat. We're at almost the top of the hour. Does anybody else have any questions about our topic? So I'm stuck. How do I stop focusing on him? Let me just answer it real quickly. You stop not by you never focus on him. You stop because you realize focusing on him isn't working. Right? It's sort of like saying, I'm trying to get in my locked front door. I punched all the codes. I rung the bell. Nothing's working. Well, maybe it's time to go to the back door. Maybe it's time to do something different, right? So it's as simple as that. It's not like never try to convince your husband, never try to talk to him. Of course, try to talk to him. Of course, try to convince him. Do what you can. But if that's not working, sister, to continue to try to get in a locked front door by banging on the door or ringing the doorbell and no one's answering isn't going to help you. It's just going to frustrate you and make you angry, anxious, and unhappy. And so what do I do about my problem? This is a very real problem for me because it happened recently. So I'm banging on the front door. I've got to go to the bathroom. My problem is I got to go to the bathroom and I don't want to pee my pants on my front at my front door. So what did I do? I went around to my garage door code and used that. And that's what I did to solve my problem, right? So what do you need to do to solve your problem? Whatever your problem is, I'm anxious, I'm angry, I'm anxious about the security of my finances. I'm anxious about the longevity of my marriage. I'm anxious about whether I can trust my husband to be faithful. I might get a sexually transmitted disease. What do I need to do about my problem? What boundaries do I need to put in place? I don't know how to do boundaries. I don't even know what boundaries I can do. I need some help with boundaries. Now I can do something. I can't change his acting out, but I can start setting boundaries. I can learn how to set boundaries. I can get support for setting boundaries. Okay. Now I still don't like what he's doing. But now I'm not quite as anxious, right? Now I'm not quite as anxious. I'm miserable. I'm unhappy. I've lived 40 years with this man. He's not going to change. He's not going to change. I'm miserable, unhappy. What's my problem with this problem? He's a couch potato. He lays around all day. He doesn't care about me. He doesn't show any interest. He doesn't want to go out to eat. He doesn't want to travel. I'm so bored. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going crazy. I'm going out of my mind. I don't like living in this house. It's so lonely. All right. So what are you going to do about your problem? I need to find some friends. I need to get a job, to get out, to have some work, to have some meaningful life. I need to get involved in church. I need to join a Bible study. I need to join I need to develop a support system, because he's not going to be my support system. Whether I stay or whether I leave, he's not going to be my support system. I need to build my life so I'm not so unhappy. Right? Does that make sense? So I begin to clarify, banging on the door, ringing the doorbell. Nothing is working. It's not helping. Okay. He doesn't want to change. I accept. I'm not getting in the front door. I accept that. I don't like it. I accept that. This isn't going to happen this way. Our marriage isn't going to be restored. He's not going to change. Now what? Here's my problem. I can't separate right now. I don't have any money. Well, then I need to earn some money. I don't know how to earn money. Well, then I need to go back to school, or I need to do consulting, some consulting with people who earn money who don't have degrees. Like, how do I start a cleaning business? We have a whole video on Conquer of a woman who found all kinds of internet stuff. She reads books in Audible. She teaches Chinese children English. She does this all from her house and makes decent money. Didn't have to go to school for these things. She just found these internet jobs. So there are resources in which you can begin to strengthen those wings. Remember in the workshop, we said a bird doesn't trust the branch is never going to break. You can't ever, even if you're in a healthy marriage, you can't trust that that branch is never going to break. Your husband is going to get killed in a car accident tomorrow, or have a stroke and become disabled, and now you got to go back to work. You've got to trust that your wings can take you where you need to go if you need to go somewhere to work, to separate, to do whatever you need to do. And so your work right now is to develop those wings so that you're not so afraid that the branch is going to break. Because if it breaks, you can fly and go to a different branch. It's okay. You're not going to just fall to the ground and die. Right? Josephine, you're disabled. And I don't know what your disabilities are, so it might prohibit you from getting some jobs. But I'm going to tell you a story, and I want you to look her up on the internet. In the 30s, I think it was the 30s. I'm going to make this up, part of it, because I don't know exactly the dates, but you can find it. So Google on YouTube, or go on YouTube and look for the iron lung lady who worked with her toes. Something like that. So this woman was in the 30s. She developed polio when polio was going around. So she was completely paralyzed from her neck down, except for the toes. She had toes that wiggled, but she was in an iron lung. Her husband left her. She's got a daughter. She's in an iron lung in bed. They didn't have the social services that they have now for people who are disabled. They didn't have Social Security then. They didn't have Social Security disability. They didn't have the helps. You were on your own, and she had a child. And she developed a business answering the telephone with her toes, an answering service. She could talk in her iron lung, and somehow she had a headset or whatever she did, and she answered the phone with her toes and worked from her bed and supported her family, her children, her child. So what I wanted to say to you is that I don't know the degree of your disability, but don't let that limit your belief that you can't do something. I mean, I see people who are disabled who are greeters at Costco. Man who's in a body brace, and he's, in a wheelchair. So there are positions that you can do, and it might not be enough money to support yourself full time or all those kind of things. But I don't want you to say I'm stuck because I'm disabled. There are lots of disabled people who are doing amazing work these days. A lot of disabled people, blind people who are doing amazing things, deaf people who are doing amazing things, people who are older who are doing amazing things. I'm older. I'm not disabled, but I'm older. I could be retired now. I'm not. And between 60 and now is when I've done my most amazing things. So don't let this limiting belief, because I'm disabled, I can't. It may not be true. It just may not be true. Okay. Yeah, Lizette says, I'm 55 years old, starting from zero, going through a divorce. Please pray. And again, I would say the same thing to you, Lizette, that there is, certainly a scary road ahead for anybody going through a divorce. It's not what you wanted. It's just like a scary road if you had a diagnosis of cancer. It's a road that you're on that you would choose not to be on if you could choose. But you can't choose. You're on it. And so how do you walk that road? How do you navigate that road is really a lot about up to you and how you see yourself, right? And that's what we talked about. Our self-concept is so, so important. If we see ourselves as capable and worthy, like I'm capable and I'm worth hiring, I could be a good employee. I'm faithful, I'm dependable, I'm loyal. I have these skills. I may not be able to have all these skills, but I am great with people. I raised 6 children. They're successful people. I know how to be responsible. I know how to teach responsibility. I know how to talk to the public, whatever your skill set is. And it may be you can't even turn on the computer, but there are things that you can do that kids today don't know how to do because they've been on their phone their whole life. So don't negate what you have to offer, even if you don't have any official degree. And there's lots of ways of polishing your skills, even on the internet, that you can learn. So I would just say your mindset is going to be crucial, all of you, if you're in this space of I can, I will, I can learn, I can grow, I can make it, I will learn, I will grow, or I can't. I can't. It's not possible for me. I'm too disabled. I'm too stupid. I never got my college degree. I'm not, whatever. This is all internal mindset stuff that keeps you stuck in a destructive place because you don't even see your options when they might be right out in front of you, but because you tell yourself you can't. I told myself in college, I can't write well enough to get my PhD. There's no way I'd be able to finish a whole dissertation. That's what I told myself. So guess what? I never applied for my PhD degree because I already told myself I couldn't. So why would I put it in an application? It limits your choices. I think I probably could have done it now. Obviously, since I've written 7 books, they're like PhD papers, right? But I didn't believe that about myself. So I never even knocked on that door. I just thought it was shut. But it wasn't shut. But I believed it was shut. So be careful. That's why we talk about conquerors, a lot of mindset stuff about who you are. You are a capable person. God has created you as good, capable, strong. And if you don't feel that way right now, it's okay. Learn to feel that way. Learn to get that way. Learn to see yourself as who you really are, not as the destructive person or your parent told you you were. Oh, you're stupid. You'll never amount to anything. You're not good at math. You're not good at drawing. I have a friend whose mom, because she colored out of the lines, told her she wasn't good at drawing. So her whole life, she's not drawn anything. And you know me, and I'm starting to paint and stuff. And I'll say, you do it. You do it. I can't do it. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. Right? But her belief, she doesn't even try because she heard as a kid she can't. And she believed it. Your mindset is critical, ladies. So I invite you to take care of you, however you're going to do that. But one way that can be really helpful and speed up the process is joining Conquer. Take care of you, get safe, get sane, get clear in your head. And when I mean sane, I don't mean from insane to sane. I mean from fuzzy-headed, uncertain to clear and certain, to know who you are, to know what you're about, to know even some of your purpose. That's so important. Your purpose isn't just to be a rag doll for someone else to throw around and use and abuse. That's not your purpose. God created you for purpose and for meaning and for connection and community. And if you've been isolated and abused and misused and hollowed out and silenced, girl, you need some girlfriends around you that can help put flesh on those bones and help you to thrive again. You need God, but you also need people. God did not create us to live alone. And you might not be married or married forever or for long, but he's created us to live in community and connection with others. So Conquer is a place that you can find that online, especially if you don't have that where you are now. But even if you do have some of that, oftentimes people that you try to share with just don't understand. They don't get it, or they don't want to hear it because they know your husband and they don't want to hear bad stuff about them. And I understand. So if you need a place to begin to develop your voice, to begin to thrive and connect and grow and learn, and you're willing to work on you, and it's not about fixing him, because we don't really give you any strategies to fix him. You're here because you've done all that and it doesn't work. So you're here to fix you and to work on you. Not so that he'll love you better, because he may not. He may like you like worse if you get stronger, but that you like you better and that you grow into the person God called you to be. All right. So I will let you go from now. I don't see any other questions. Let me just check and see if Mandy put any more questions in here. Oh, I have one more. It looks like 2 more. Okay, 2 more questions and then I'll go. All right. Here's one. How do you get out of tit for tat? I am walking through a divorce with an emotionally abusive husband. We're still living together. I am just living my life. However, he operates in tit for tat all the time. How do I engage in normal daily health? How do I engage to normal daily in healthy way? So you can only do tit for tat if you do it too, right? So you could just leave it at tit, right? And not do the tat part. But let me just remind you of a conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago that I'm just going to tell you where to stop the conversation. All right, so we talked about the 5 levels of conversation a couple of weeks ago when we were doing some teaching. So level 5 is superficial. Like we say to people, hi, how are you? Okay, so that's a level 5 conversation. It's not intimate. It's not personal. You're not asking any, you're not really wanting to know how they are when you're saying that. It's just basically polite chit chat. The next level is news and facts. Okay, it's raining today. You might want to take your umbrella, right? News and facts. John is sick today. He's staying home from school. Don't forget to pick the kids up from soccer. All right, news and facts. That's all you say. That's where you're going to stop. You're going to communicate polite, superficial conversation around news and facts. That's it. And if you do that, there should be no tit for tat. Okay, but if there is, see, this is where you're going into. If you share your thoughts about something, your thoughts or ideas, this is personal. Okay, this is where you get attacked. Okay, I think we should have chicken tonight. Not we're having chicken tonight, but I think we should. Oh, you always have to have your way, don't you? He's going to attack you there, right? I want to take John to the doctor because he's sick. I think he needs to go to the doctor. He's gonna. So you try to stay away from this. The next one is your feelings. 5, 4, 3, 2. Your feelings. Okay. I feel hurt that you said that. Don't go there. He will attack you, and then you'll go back and you'll go into tit for tat. Or one is vulnerability, whole vulnerability, honesty, transparency. Okay. Like you take all your clothes off, you're naked. You don't take all your clothes off. You just share some of your feelings. Okay. All right, so when you hear, this is kind of the marriage relationship, isn't it? They are naked and unafraid. This is the intimacy that God is saying, hey, don't have sex. You're so naked and so vulnerable in sex. Don't do this until you have trust and safety in your relationship. Because if you do this and you don't have trust and safety in your relationship, you can get really hurt. So don't do this until you're married so that there is the safety measures of marriage. So when your marriage isn't safe, you got to stay up here. All right. You just have to. The Bible tells us, that we speak to a mocker, they will mock us back. Don't have conversations where you're asking them to care or listen to your thoughts or your feelings. We're just going to get hurt. So one is keep your own mouth shut when he does tit, don't do tat. And second, keep the conversation pretty general, superficial, and newsy. And that should help you. All right. What if I want to separate and he is unwilling to leave? So let me just say how the law works. If you buy a house together, it's both of your houses. It's not his, it's not yours. It's our house. It's joint marital asset. Therefore, you can't kick someone out of their own house the same as they can't kick you out of your own house. That's how the law works. Just like if you have joint marital assets, it belongs to both of you. Therefore, when he controls all the money and you let that happen, the law isn't going to get involved in that because they assume you consent, right? The only way that you don't consent is if you file a paper saying, we're not going to be married anymore and I'm filing for divorce. Then they have some teeth into who spends what of joint marital assets. So you're dealing with a legal issue here, and you cannot kick someone out of their own house if they own it. Even if they only own it half of it, they still own it. The only way that you can kick someone out of their own house is if they've been harmful to you, and you can file a protection from abuse order with a court that makes them leave the home so that they're not continuing to be dangerous. Usually that requires some sort of physical threat or physical abuse. And if you have that evidence, use it. Call the police, go to court, get a PFA, and then he will have to leave. So let me finish answering the question. So he is unwilling to leave and he doesn't have to leave. Just as if you were unwilling to leave. If you said, I want to separate and I want you to leave, you don't have to leave. I've been married 5 years. He moved into the apartment I already had. Okay, so I get that. So ideally it would be him leaving instead of me with my 4 kids, the youngest we share together. We tried marriage counseling and he made the therapist quit us. He is verbally and emotionally abusive. He has been physically abusive on 2 occasions, but not recently. So that was your ticket to file a protection from abuse order, which you didn't. And I'm just encouraging all of you. Romans 13 says that God has put the law in place. Let me read it to you. When Paul writes this, and when he says believers shouldn't fight with one another in court, he's talking about trivial civil matters. He's talking about trivial civil matters that you shouldn't take believers to court about. He's not talking about legal matters that are against the law. So let me just read to you Romans 13. It's written by the same man, Romans 13, so that you understand that calling to the police is for your protection. So he says, everyone must submit to governing authorities, for all authority comes from God, and those in positions of authority have been placed there by God. So anyone who rebels against authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and they will be punished. For the authorities do not strike fear in people who are doing right. So if you're not messing and doing bad things, you're not afraid of the police. For the authorities do not strike fear in people who are doing right, but in those who are doing wrong. Would you like to live without fear of the authorities? Then do what is right, and they will honor you. The authorities are God's servants sent for your good. But if you are doing wrong, of course you should be afraid, for they have the power to punish you. They are God's servants sent for the very purpose of punishing those who do wrong. Pay your taxes. So he's talking about government authorities, police, who protect people from those who do us harm. Now, it's a whole debate in this culture right now, and I get that. But God's plan for that was that when evildoers do evil, we call the authorities so that they get in trouble for that. So when we don't do that because we love them so much, or we don't want to make them upset, or we're afraid of them, all of that, we're just actually enabling their bravado and their evil to flourish. So, okay, I hope you call him next time. He is not a good father, and I'm starting to see him from emotionally abuse our son. The idea of filing for divorce and having to wait for that process to be final before he leaves seems unbearable. He will make life miserable for the duration of the divorce proceedings. So you have a choice. I don't know if you have a landlord, if your name is on the lease. If your name is on the lease and his name is not on the lease, is there something you can do? I would check into that legally, since it's not an owned apartment. I assume it's a rented apartment. And the other is for you to either say you leave, or talk to your landlord and tell him the situation and say, I'm going to have to leave because he's abusive. He's abusive to me and the kids. He won't leave. And so then maybe the landlord can step in and say, your wife and you are separated. She wants to leave. You want to put your name on the lease and pay the rent? And if he doesn't want to put his name on the lease and pay the rent, that may get him out. Versus, that might be a strategy of saying, hey, then you're going to have to be responsible, or you're both going to have to leave. And if you both have to leave, then you go get your own lease and your own apartment and don't invite him in. Those would be the only solutions to what I see you doing. But I would definitely check with an attorney on all of that. But if you're just renting it, your name is on the lease, right? And if his name is on the lease too, then that may be a legal issue that you'd have to check. But you can't make someone leave their own home if they're joint paying for it, joint owning it, right? And even if they're not paying for it, like a wife who's living in a house and she's not paying for it, but she's a joint owner, you can't kick someone out of their own house. It's just not allowed. And for good reasons, Okay, so I would say this is where we want you to develop some wings and not feel so stuck. So when you feel stuck, wherever you are, right? So let's say I'm stuck at the end of a road and I don't know whether to go right or left, and my phone's out of juice, so my GPS is not working. And I don't know whether I should go right or left. I'm stuck. Do I stay? Do I leave? What do I do? I can't get him to leave. What do I do? I'm stuck. Well, no, you're not, because if you just sit there, what's going to happen? Nothing, right? You're going to be in the same old. So you've got to make a decision. And this is where I encourage you to take a turn, pick one. Same with join and conquer. Don't stay stuck and let the deadline go, because you won't be able to get in again until next year, or September this year, October, somewhere around there. So don't stay stuck. Make a decision. Yes, I'm going to separate, or yes, I'm going to do this, or no, I'm going to do whatever you're going to do. Yes, I'm going to have a conversation with my husband. I'm going to do what Leslie said, or I'm going to stop having conversations with him, and I'm not going to go any deeper than giving him the facts and information so that we don't do tit for tat. And then when you take that next step and you turn right or you turn left, whichever you decide, it's up to you, then you get more information, right? So when you turn the corner and you get more information, you say, wow, she said the church was supposed to be right down here about a block or two down the road. I don't see any church. Maybe it was the wrong direction. I should have gone the other way. And you're just going to do this, and you're going to make a U-turn and and you're going to make another choice. And now you have more information. So here's where we walk by faith, not by sight. So I encourage you to start moving somewhere. Start not moving out of your house, but moving psychologically, moving spiritually, moving emotionally towards where you want to go. I want to get healthy. I want to get strong. I want to learn to build my wings. Okay. I want my marriage to work. Okay. I've tried that. Don't have a whole lot of control over that. So all I can do is get myself stronger. And maybe if I get myself stronger, that will be positive for my husband. Maybe not, because he doesn't want me strong. He wants to be able to control me. You don't know until you start getting stronger. Once you start getting stronger, guess what happens? I notice that he's less bossy. He's less pushy, because he knows he's not going to really get away with it. I'm not going to do what he wants me to do all the time. I'm going to tell him, no, that's not good for me to do, or whatever. I don't have capacity to do that. I'm going to have boundaries. And he accepts them miraculously. Wow, I should have done this a long time ago. Or you're going to find, as you get stronger, he's going to start being less covert and more overt. Who do you think you are? Who are you listening to? You think you're so smart. You don't know squat. You're gonna go to hell. You're just a Jezebel spirit. Whatever he does, he's going to get more aggressive. Well, now you know. I'm not even as safe as I thought I was. He is really against me growing. I need to do my own work even more, because he's getting more dangerous, right? He's escalating. Not I need to shrink back so he doesn't say that. It's giving me information about who he really is. The sheep has taken off its hood and the fangs are coming out. And you see that. All right, clarity. That helps you. Okay. Cicely says, Leslie is right. Go gray rock. Don't react. Never wrestle with pigs. You both get dirty, and the pigs like it. George Bernard Shaw. I love that. And Jesus says it clearly in Matthew 7. He says, don't cast your pearls before swine, because they will turn on you and trample you with it. So go gray rock. So I'm going to give you a picture of a gray rock. I don't really have a rock here, but here's a gray rock. just picture this as a big old gray rock. And I'm going to start yelling at this rock. You are such an ugly stand. You're just hard and you're insensitive and nobody can get through to you. And you've got these 4 crazy dots on there and you're good for nothing. You're just good for nothing. What's this doing? It's doing nothing. It's doing nothing. Gray rock means you don't respond. You just deflect, 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 deflect. Nothing gets in. Nothing gets in. You observe, but it just bounces off of you. You're like a gray rock. That's what she means by gray rock, in case you didn't know. All right. That's been happening to me. Yes. Go gray rock. Learn that. What would it be like if you could just not react? So when you don't react and you say, and you can say or not say, I'm not playing this game anymore. I'm not dancing this dance anymore, because as soon as I start dancing tit for tat, or you did this, you did that, you did this, what happens? It goes up in flames. What might happen if I didn't do that? I can't control his side of the street. I only can control mine. And if you are struggling with controlling your side of the street and you want to be a godly woman, guess what? One of the fruit of the Spirit is self-control. Now, we don't have endless self-control. We don't have endless self-control, just like we don't have endless capacity. But you're to learn self-control. And then you're to take care of yourself when you're out of self-control, right? When you're out of self-control, we go to sleep, we refresh, we regroup, we go to the bathroom, whatever we need to do when we're out of self-control to take care of ourselves, to replenish our tank, we do, because that's what human beings need to do. God's wired us that way. Even Jesus had to do that. He went off often by himself to a lonely place. Why? Because those people were driving him stark raving mad sometimes. He had to go get himself back in a good space, right? Because he wanted to be a model of the perfect human being, right? So not that we can be perfect, but we can learn from his modeling how we can do better. So make some choices. And I hope one of them is to join Conquer. And if so, we'll see you over on the other side with an amazing community of about 500 women who've already joined. And we're going to get started on our Conquer journey all together to help you learn those steps of awakening, safety, clarity, strengthening, stability, and confidence. And you won't learn them all in 6 weeks, but you will get tastes of each one so that you know exactly where you need to go next. All right. All right. Tomorrow, Leanne will be back and she will be talking about, I'm not sure what it is, but it is what your email said before my email came, because they got them mixed up for today. But she'll be back for tomorrow on our Facebook Live. So see you Friday. I think I'll be back on Wednesday, but if not, I'll see you Friday at the party. All right. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.